Good morning and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist my practice is located in Encino, California. And we are offering this program to you at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio, and by we, I mean my best friend, my business partner, my colleague, Dr. Robert Jaffe. And yes, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. So we are here today to talk about addictions, trauma, functional and dysfunctional family systems, and codependency. And so we've been talking for the last few weeks about codependency as being the most overlooked addiction.
Exactly. So because it is so overlooked, let me announce our phone number. So just in case our listeners would like to contact us.
Sounds great.
Right. 951-922-3532. Please join us, ask your question, give us your comments. And we appreciate you share this program with those that you believe they can benefit from it. So yes, it's a topic that is devastating.
Yeah, it can be very devastating to people, especially when they don't know that they're caught in it.
Right.
Yeah, because the whole goal of mental and emotional health is to be dedicated to truth rather than to feeling good. And that doesn't mean that truth can help you feel good, but the truth doesn't always feel good. And if you're dedicated to feeling good, then you are going to overlook the truth or skew it in some negative way or out and out lie about it. And it's all in the service of just feeling good rather than exploring the truth, which may create some problems, but the resolution of those problems can be very, very healthy and very uplifting. So that's what we try to help our clients with when they come in, is to look at the truth of things, and the truth is not always easy to see. So we are defining family systems because everything starts in the beginning. We were children, and as children, we come into the world fully with our right brain functions intact. Right brain is creative, right brain is imaginative, and right brain is intuitive, and right brain is emotional and feeling. So babies come into the world feeling the same feelings as people who are 60, 70, 80 years old. How do we know that? Because there's been a lot of studies done. And what we've discovered is that babies not only have all the same feelings, babies also have the same sexual feelings, right?
Yes.
You and I just discovered that in the sex education class that we took.
Right.
We discovered that boys actually can get erections in the womb, and they've measured girls as lubricating as early as 3 days old.
Right.
And so we know that when we're born, a lot of what we come into the world with is intact. And our left brain, which is logical and has to do with being able to talk and make sense of sounds and arrange sounds in a way that are intelligible to ourselves and to other people, that left brain doesn't come online for a while and actually keeps developing throughout our lifespan. So when we talk about addictions, we're really talking about a right brain difficulty.
Right.
Because addictions are about having feelings that we may not be even aware of, but that cause us unhappiness and cause us stress. Um, Sometimes we're aware of those feelings. Sometimes we know that we are depressed. And so we look for something to make us feel better. And we don't say to ourselves, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a heroin addict, or I'm going to grow up and be an alcoholic. Most of us don't think that, nor do we wish that upon ourselves. However, when we are exposed to circumstances when we are very young and exposed to circumstances that make us feel sad or scared or upset, those circumstances that made us feel that way affect how we feel inside, and therefore we look for some sort of relief. And it happens sort of automatically. We just kind of look for something that makes us feel better.
Right.
And I'm not putting down feeling better. Everybody wants to feel better, and it's a good thing to feel better, but not at the expense of the truth of what's really happening. So, in a functional family, we say that everybody has an equal voice in expressing what they are thinking and feeling. That you and I had gone to some seders, which are Jewish celebrations, where we saw the children there being given an opportunity to speak.
Right, right.
You know, and they talked about their day, and they talked about how they saw things, and they were given time to do that. And they weren't corrected, and they weren't admonished, and they weren't, above all, they weren't criticized for how they saw things or what they thought.
Or, how they presented their projects, and they were able to describe them. And it was all, about admiring them versus criticizing them, or do it better this way.
Exactly. So and you and I were very pleased that that it was that they were given such a gift.
Right.
And that's.
I know that my experiences. Each time, I was really stunned by how the children were given the opportunity to, among adults, and among children themselves, to be able to be expressive about just whatever that applies to a child's life. It wasn't like a grown-up talk. It wasn't anything talk. It was just age appropriate, how a child, felt and feels, and how they saw the world around them, and how they saw their projects, and how they saw themselves, having, a place for themselves among the whole group that was there. So if a child feels that they are included, they have their own space, and they are recognized for who they are, that's a healthy life that we wish for all the kids.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And so the ability to formulate your own ideas and to express them is central in emotional health and mental health. And so we want to give that opportunity to our children. And we also want to give that opportunity to other people in our lives. And we want to give that opportunity especially to people who are close to us. So, if we are in a relationship, a romantic relationship, if we're in a friendship, even if we're in a business relationship, we want to give the other person an opportunity to express themselves fully, and not to interfere by cutting them off and correcting them, or in the middle of what they're saying to try to say, well, no, that's not how it is, or that's not what I see. If you give a person an opportunity to express themselves fully, then they most likely will want to reciprocate.
Well, we are so quick to tell each other, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. That's how society, we see that in society. We see that among couples that they come to our practice. If we let them, the entire session goes by pointing at each other and tell each other how wrong the partner is and how right they are.
Yeah, yeah. And so at that point we intervene and we say, if this is what you guys want to do, I'm sure you're good at it, and I'm sure you can spend the whole session doing it, but I don't think that's what you're here for.
Right.
Right. So what we do is we say, okay, you're going to take turns and you're going to listen. And the way that you can listen is you can either listen to respond or you can listen to understand. And so I want everybody who's listening to me right now to recognize that, well, of course, since this is the radio and so you're not going to be responding to me out loud because I can't hear you, but you may be responding in your head as I'm saying something to say, well, yes, that's right, but, or no, I don't think so. And then inside your head, you're listening to respond. And that's one way of listening, but often when we're listening to respond, we miss the essence of what the person is really saying, because as we're formulating our response in our head, we are also missing part of what the person is saying. We may be quiet, but we're really not listening.
This is correct.
Yeah. So, and the other thing, of course, is listening to understand. And so what I say to my couples when I see them is I say, do you think that your partner is crazy? Do you think that he or she is crazy? And they think about it for a while, and usually they say, well, no, not crazy, but they're not always right. I said, I didn't ask that. I said, I'm just asking, do you think your partner is crazy? And they'll usually say, no. And I say, okay. Then I would say then that whatever your partner is saying, there might be some truth in, right? It might not be the whole truth. It may not even be how you view it. But if your partner is not crazy, they're going to have a piece of the truth. And so it's your job to try to look for that and validate that.
What I tell them is that after I listen to both sides, I tell them that they are both right, because each one of them, is talking from their own experiences. They're talking from their own understanding and perspective. And in their own world, what they say is correct and is accurate for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that it's actually accurate in the relationship.
Yeah, I like that response.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
Then, so with that, because that shows them that I heard them both and I validate them both. But now, let's find out how the perception has been made and what's going on with that. So we just got the notice that we are having our commercial break. So let's talk more about this in about 2 minutes.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here discussing codependency, addictions, trauma, and relationships. And please call us at 951-922-3532 or email us your question if you don't wish to come online. And then you can also visit us at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And we appreciate you spending your Friday morning with us. So, Dr. Jaffe, we were talking about dysfunctional family.
We were talking about, we were talking about how we listen.
How we listen, yes.
Yeah, and we can listen to either understand or we can listen to respond. And if we're listening to respond, we can often miss out on the other person's full communication.
Right.
So it's something for you to recognize within yourself, and to really try to understand the other person is giving the other person credit for having something valuable to say, and the other person If you do understand and you let them know you understand, that person will feel um, respected, and that person will then usually become curious as to what you think, and then they'll be willing to listen to you. So unfortunately, we've fallen into the trap of listening to respond and listening to whether we agree or not. And then as soon as the person says something, it may come out in the first two words. We're often running disagreeing, and we can't wait to say our opinion. And then, of course, the person feels cut off and doesn't want to hear our opinion. And that, of course, escalates into an argument, and even worse than that,
Right.
you know. So in a functional family, all the people in the family, parents as well as the siblings, as well as whoever else is in that family system on a regular basis, are all given the opportunity to speak their truth, and if you disagree, you still look for what you agree with and validate that, so that the person will feel like, oh, you're not negating me, but you may not agree with everything I'm saying, and people can understand that. But if you feel as if the person is negating you because they're responding too quickly and they're not really listening, um, then you're setting yourself up for an argument.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we often do that. We often, just because, in the case, let's say we feel like we have to respond to everything we hear, and we can become actually judgmental, and then offer our own perception of what we heard and our own evaluations and our own meaning making. But in fact, sometimes just saying, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me is more than good enough.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I really, and not just saying the overall, what you just said, although that's great, but also specifying what it is that the person said that you like.
Right. I mean, depending on, what's going on, of course, just making a point of, I heard you say this and I understand you said that, and thank you for sharing with me,
Yeah.
so that the person who talked can recognize that he or she has been heard, and most of the time just being heard, is what we are all missing, Right.
And how many times have you had a client come in and say to you, I've never had anybody just listen to me?
Oh, I have some of them.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, I would say, without a doubt, all of them. Without a doubt. Or if that's an exaggeration, maybe 95% of them tells me if at some point in their therapy, I don't have anybody to listen to me.
Right.
Many couples within relationship, they come in and they say that, we're together, but we don't hear each other. We don't talk to each other. He doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me. I have a client that the other day, the wife said to her husband, all I want you to is to hear me out. Just hear me out. And the husband didn't have any clue what hearing me out really meant. Right.
And so, as a therapist, then, our job is to get the other person to really listen to what their partner is saying when we're doing couples work.
Right.
Yeah.
And couples work, by far, is a combination, in my experience, a combination of individual, family, and of course, couples, relationship. It's just because the reason is because each person, each partner brings with themselves, the history that they have, and their history includes, everything that has happened to them, including their childhood, and then their relationship with their parents and siblings and everybody else in their life. So basically, we're looking at two histories here and how these two histories are able to connect with each other, to understand each other, to merge into each other. and then to make the best out of it. So that's kind of, it's challenging part. However, the beauty of that is just like everything else, when you put an effort into something and you get a good result out of it, that's all we're looking for, right? It's similar to, raising a child. It's difficult, but just one look at that child gives you all the joy you want, right?
Right.
So there is a give and take here, and nothing is just about to take. It's about what to give so that you can take what you want. So it's a participation, it's a partnership, is coming together, is putting the guards down, is accepting, each other as who they are and value that, not try to change that or push it out because, it doesn't match with you, rather than to understand it.
Yes, absolutely. So what has all this got to do with addictions, right? So we were talking at the beginning about how addictions often come about by coming from families where feelings are not understood, feelings are not valued, feelings are not expressed, or feelings are discounted, and because that is half of who we are, that's our right brain, is the feeling part. When our feelings go unexpressed or unheard, or worse yet, discounted or rejected, we feel as though we are discounted and rejected, and that creates pain. That creates psychic pain, and because nobody is there to tell them, oh, you're in pain because this is happening, we just swallow the pain, and it gets lodged in our bodies, and it gets lodged in our subconscious minds, and it creates anxiety, and it creates depression, and can even create physical illness, right? So in a dysfunctional family, we say it's dysfunctional simply because each partner is not being heard and understood and valued for who he or she is. And when that happens over a period of time, the consequences of that can be very devastating, especially in terms of the person's later self-esteem and ability to have intimate relationships with other people. So what happens then is this psychic pain builds up. People look for ways to feel better, and some of those ways can be healthy. You can feel better by exercising. You can feel better by being creative. You can do it, express yourself through writing, or through art, or through sculpture. That can be creative, and you can use those feelings to create something. But oftentimes, those feelings make us do something negative, and we look for instant gratification and instant relief through the use of addictions. So if I just light up a joint, if I just take a pill, or if I just have a drink, then I feel better, and you do feel better. Of course, you wouldn't do it if you didn't feel better, but of course those things wear off, and the pain is still there, and then you've got to do it again and again and again, and eventually the addiction usually becomes the thing that consumes you. So you're living to feed your addiction, as they say. And so how does codependence fit into this? Codependence is a belief that you need somebody else to validate you. And of course, if you grow up in a situation where you weren't validated, that need to be validated can be you can feel a desperation to be validated, and so you do things in order to get validation from people, and so you're not doing something necessarily because it's something you want to do or even enjoy doing, but your behavior is geared to get a response from the other person. And so that is the essence of codependency. It comes from not it comes from a dysfunctional family system where the people aren't validated, they're not noticed, they're not honored for who they are, and their behavior is confused with who they are. So if the child spills a glass of milk, that is poor behavior. The child was clumsy, and the child needs to be reprimanded. And some people even go further than that, you know, actually physically punish the child, as though the child did it on purpose, as though the child is bad, and as though the child needs to be punished, rather than, oh, honey, you spilled a glass of milk, and that's okay, we'll clean it up.
Well, not too long ago, when we look at the history, we see that, you know, punishment for children were something that was very much believed in, and it was ordinary. You know, when we look at the history, we see that there was a time in history that people called children devils,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And we still say that from time to some children, you know, especially to boys, he's a devil, right? And we say it in such a way that as though that is something, it's a good comment that we're giving to the child,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, thankfully, that's no longer the case. It still happens, but it's not significantly happening. But back then, back in the history, when the child was told devil, then there were really harsh physical punishments, you know, that they were given to the children.
Mm-hmm.
Like starvation was one of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and putting them to do hard labors. So across history, we see photos of children that they are barefoot, they're very underweight, they wear very dirty, ripped up outfits. They haven't been showered for weeks. So no, we don't see that as you know today. But then again, when we say a child to a child that he or she is a devil, we may not mean it anything, you know, harmful. But for the child who has a different expression and impression of what the devil is and what the devil can do,
Mm-hmm.
they assign that meaning to themselves.
Yes.
And that doesn't feel good to them.
Right.
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 And that one comment is good enough to take the child to a place of I'm not good enough, or I'm a devil and I'm doing, you know, wrong things. So the child won't feel good about, you know, herself or himself. And to me, when that happens, and depends on the earlier it happens, you know, it becomes one of the you know roots for future addictions.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Name calling is you know, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me. Is it makes people think, oh, it shouldn't bother me that so and so is calling me a name. And I think that that statement of sticks and stones, I think it's a ridiculous statement because it's untrue. It's untrue. Calling somebody a name does hurt them, and certainly calling a child a name can hurt the child very deeply because the child doesn't have the intellectual ability to recognize that you're saying that out of anger, but it doesn't really apply to the child. The child will take it in, and I know you know a lot of girls and when they get into their teens, they're called by one or both of the parents. They call them sluts,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that that's very painful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for a girl coming from her mother or coming from her father, that's really devastating. And you know, whatever our parents tell us somehow becomes our truth because we hear it from our parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we hear something like that from a neighbor or from somebody that we don't know as much, you know, like a teacher or somebody at the school, we rush home and we tell our parent, you know, in a crying matter, that so and so called me this name, right?
Right.
So we resent that, and that's the interesting part. But if our parents tell us that, we become sad, we take it in, and we go to a corner, and then gradually we assume to be that one.
Yeah, yeah. We may either comply with them
Right.
and actually do the behavior
Do the
that they're
behavior.
assigning us,
Right.
or we may rebel against them
Mhm.
and do something which is the opposite, which either one is not our authentic true self.
Exactly.
We don't want to define ourselves by either how our parents see us or the opposite of how our parents see us. We want to define ourselves by who we truly are.
Okay. So we just got a notice about our commercial break, and we will see you in a few minutes. Please join us back here.
See you soon.
Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program, KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. This morning we have been talking about codependency, trauma, addictions, and dysfunctional families, and how we communicate. And Dr. Robert.
Yes. So over the past couple of weeks, we've talked about codependency and the various roles that people adopt in their family system in order to cope with the fact that they aren't being heard, and they're not being treated respectfully, or they're being treated poorly and criticized and made to feel as though they're not good enough, or even worse, made to feel as though they are bad. And so these are roles that people adopt, and we're getting these roles. They've been talked about a lot over the past 30 or 40 years. The book that we're working out of is called Codependence: Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield. It's sort of the Bible of codependency, and so these personality components, these roles, these traits, these are all common ways in which the person finds to deal with the unhappiness and to get some of the attention that they want or need. And negative attention is usually preferable to no attention, because negative attention at least gives us an identity, and we all need an identity. So hopefully the identity that we assume is positive and is loving. But if we come from a dysfunctional family, it doesn't always turn out that way, and then we see them later on in our office with problems, usually emotional problems that manifest through illness or manifest through problems at work, but usually also manifest in problems in relationships.
Exactly. Like, for example, I have a couple now that the wife pretty much has no identity of her own.
Mm-hmm.
When she wants, for example, to prepare a meal, she looks at to see what her husband likes. She eats only when her husband is ready to eat. And she starves herself all day just to wait for her husband to be available to eat. Mm-hmm. And she's not looking at the fact that the husband is not hungry most of the day. It's because he's feeding himself whenever he feels like it.
Right.
Right. And then so we process that, and I ask her, what's going on with that? How come, she starves herself and only makes food that, her husband, enjoys? And then she says, well, whatever he likes, I like. He pretty much likes what I like, right? And then, so fast forward, we got to a point that she's actually afraid of making the food that she likes. Mm-hmm. And so I, again, fast forward, we got to a point that I asked her, if she can prepare one of the meals that she likes for herself, mm-hmm. that she hasn't had the courage to cook. So it took a while for her to agree with that. And finally, she made it. She made it, and she brought it in. And by far, for the first time, she did an excellent job, really realistic. There was nothing wrong with the food. And But she even was afraid to taste it herself.
Mm-hmm.
So with the help of therapy, she was able to have a few bites. And, I helped her to, keep the food, chew it, feel the taste, feel the texture, feel the fragrance, and identify what she's eating. And it was a very, to me at least, it was a very touchy session that I had with her, and how she felt good about herself, about the meal that she prepared,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that she got her identity by doing that one exercise, right?
Right.
But that's a, crack in the wall, pretty much.
It's a step in the right direction.
Step in the right direction that, she is able to experience some of what she likes. And by far we do that. We just become such a, I don't want to use the codependent, but that's what it is to each other, that we forget about who we are. We don't even go to the place of understanding who we are. And we just assume who we are.
Right.
And we live by that assumptions, only to wonder how come we are unhappy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the personality components, the roles, traits, and disorders, we've gone over a number of them. Today, I'll just comment on the ones that we've gone over and then see if we have time to continue. The one personality trait that is very common is rescuers and fixers. And of course, these people try to fix or help other people while neglecting themselves.
Yeah, they're always available to do things and take over tasks and, make sure that everybody else is comfortable at the, price of their discomfort.
Yes, and they will overdo and neglect themselves. So, and then there are people pleasers, and people pleasers would rather acquiesce and comply with others than express their own healthy wants and needs. And they don't have good boundaries, so that it's hard for people pleasers to say no. There's actually a book, I think you got the book, called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty.
Yes, I have it actually somewhere.
Yeah.
Right next to me, maybe.
You got a bunch of them there.
I have bunches, yeah.
And
exactly. Ready to be read.
Ready to be read. And then the next one is overachievers. And overachievers, of course, feel empty inside. They're sort of disconnected from their authentic true self, and so they try to fill themselves up with more and more achievements.
Yeah, something about overachievers that's really interesting is that when we point this one out to clients, they say, "What? I'm a successful woman. I'm a successful man. I did all this work to get to where I am today, and you're calling me overachiever. I still have so much to do. I'm just the beginning road, and I know I have to do this and I have to do that." And I asked them, "Didn't you just say you're a successful person?"
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they keep wanting more and more and more and more and more. Now, some of what we want more and more and more and more, maybe it is necessary to have, however, there are people that it's a never-ending process for them.
Right, yeah.
I know you have called me sometimes overachiever.
Well, I call them as I see them.
You call them as you see them, right?
Yeah, but it's not a criticism. It's just what
how it is. What it is.
Yeah, it's just something that we adopted, by trying to cope with what was going on with us.
Right.
That's all. It's not a pejorative label. All of these are not pejorative labels. They're roles that we assume when we didn't get what we needed, and we thought, oh, this is a way to get what I need. So it's something,
this is our surviving mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's them. Then there's inadequate people, or people who see themselves as inadequate. They try to deal with the feeling of emptiness by becoming what they believe they were told they were. So you're no good. You never amount to anything. You're just like your father. You're just like your mother, in a negative way. And so they live up to, or I should say down to, the labels that they were given. So those are inadequate ones or failures. Um, the next one is perfectionists. Uh, and if you want to hear more about these, we're just briefly touching on today, but we've talked about them in the last couple of shows. You can check the archives for that. But perfectionists are driven by fear of failure and the need to avoid being wrong or making any mistakes. So they're very nitpicking, and if you say one word that is not the exact perfect word, they will criticize you for it, and they expect nothing less of themselves. And there was a man by the name of Fritz Perls, one of the originators of Gestalt therapy, and he would say that perfectionism is really nothing more than an excuse to wield a whip. And that's pretty much the way it is. Then there are people who are victims. They are chronic victims. They often have chronic illnesses. Uh, they and the other thing I want to say about this is just because we're talking about these as though they're pure, they're not always pure. One can mix with another. So you may get somebody, for example, who presents as a victim, but also as a perfectionist. You know, you can mix and match these. So human beings aren't that simple where they can be all categorized. But if you see traits in these, the reason we're bringing them up is so that you can be aware of them. Anything that you're aware of, you can work on. So if there's no problem, then there's nothing to work on. So we have to take a look and see what are we like, and what are the people around us like, so that we can identify it, not to make ourselves feel bad or make anyone else feel bad, but to educate, to say, oh, this is going on inside of me, and what's that about? And to question that, so that we can begin to understand it, and then resolve it, so that we don't have to keep living in those particular roles that we have assigned to ourselves, or that were assigned to us. So victims present as sick ones, chronic illness, and the victim pretty much says, nobody understands me, and what they really are seeking is pity. You know, self-pity. And they believe that by getting the pity, at least they're getting noticed, you know, and at least people will feel something for them. So that's them. Martyrs are kind of difficult to notice. And martyrs are like victims, except that they deny that they're victims. So they won't say that there's something wrong with me. They will they manifest those feelings and their actions by showing themselves that they know everything, and they've tried everything, but nothing has worked. So they're the people who will yes but you. You know, well, you know, I've thought about this. And the person will say, well, yes, I have thought about it, but da 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 da, and then they'll give you the reason why it's not going to work for them. So those are martyrs. And then, of course, we have the addicted people themselves, right? And addictions, again, are chronic behaviors that we use in order to feel better temporarily. People can be addicted to things other than alcohol or drugs. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about codependence, where people are addicted to other people. And also addictions can also be eating disorders, because you can be addicted to food or lack of food, because if you're not eating and you're starving yourself, you're going to have the perfect body, and then people will love you. And so that idea, of course, I'm saying that sarcastically, of course, that idea is erroneous, because it isn't about that. And
it's not about that, but the society makes it about that.
Right,
you know,
right.
And then, you know, both sides falls in the trap of that.
Mm-hmm. And then there's, of course, sex addiction, where people become addicted to the euphoria of being sexually aroused. And there's workaholism, where people become addicted to their work so that they don't have to feel their feelings. They just kind of numb out, and they just feel this constant feeling of, oh, I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward. I'm working toward what I want. I'm working toward what I want. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it begins to take over your life, then it can be considered a problem and an addiction. And then there's compulsive spending, shopping. A lot of people, women especially, use that as an addiction. They shop. The old expression, "shop till you drop," and of course, when you do that, you're getting a charge out of buying something. Ooh, I got this new thing, and your adrenaline races, and you get a good feeling from that.
I haven't shopped since pandemic started.
No.
Actually, before that even,
Uh-huh.
So I haven't been shopping since, I would say, at least January.
Well, you're definitely not a shopping addict.
I'm not.
No, you're not.
Thank God, it's been scratched off the list.
Yeah. I was, but not. I didn't buy clothing. I bought books.
Right.
Yeah. And so I would buy books obsessively, thinking that, oh, if I get this book, then I can learn this, and then I'll be okay.
Exactly.
So that was something. So
we are at the end of our program.
It flew by.
Flew by, and then we will continue with this amazing discussion next week. So we want to thank you for joining us. Please join us back again on Thursday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Sexual Healthcare and Human Sexuality, and next Friday at this time, 9 o'clock, for Codependency, Trauma, and Addictions. And until then, be safe, be well, and all you need is love.
Love, love, love. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.